It began with the satellites, not the major orbital arrays or the corporate comsats. Those failed first. What remained were the debris trackers, the passive nodes no one bothered to hack or monitor. One by one, they began detecting something no one expected: backscatter. From space. But not from the sun, not from the moon. From Earth itself. A signal was bouncing off the planet's surface, not reflected, but originated. A narrowband transmission on a frequency so high it bordered the quantum noise floor, a band used only in theoretical quantum communications, the kind believed impossible without trillion-dollar lasers or black hole-level energy. Yet here it was, consistent, structured, and impossibly complex. The signal wasn't broadcasting information. It was broadcasting architecture. At the University of Reykjavik's Subquantum Computing Division, Dr. Anselm Krysek and his graduate team were the first to isolate the phenomenon. The transmission contained what looked like layered instruction sets, blueprints, not for machines or code, but for biological reconfiguration. Instructions so intricate, so biologically intimate, they could only have one target: the human genome, but not the normal genome. The signal was tuning itself to a secondary DNA lattice, a dormant helix of unknown base pairs first theorized in fringe epigenetic circles. Most dismissed it as data noise, junk code. Krysek called it delta strand encoding. The signal was waking it up. The first to change were people already exposed to extremely high EM fields, deep-sea welders, ionospheric researchers, even a lightning strike survivor in Tanzania. Their dormant delta strands acted like antennae, catching fragments of the incoming blueprint and rewriting themselves in real time. Their bodies didn't mutate. They executed. A mechanic in St. Petersburg developed a field of inertia nullification. He could walk through solid metal like it was smoke. A teenager in Jakarta restructured her optic nerves. Her gaze could incinerate steel with high-frequency radiation. A woman in Chile discovered she could phase into the electromagnetic spectrum and transmit herself across any active network, vanishing from one place and reassembling in another. No spells, no science fiction radiation, no divine intervention, just signal, broadcast from below. Mara Denley, a xenocomputation analyst for a private orbital firm, didn't believe in superpowers. But when her company's low-orbit probe was caught in a reverse energy flow, not from the sun, but from a cold vacuum rising from the poles, she did what no one else thought to do. She interfaced her neural assistant directly with the incoming subquantum pulse. She blacked out for 36 hours. When she woke up, her bones no longer carried nerve signals. Her nervous system had migrated to a quantum sublayer, accessible only when she consciously phased into it. She could now slow time, not for the world, but for herself. A second could stretch into hours inside her field of thought, allowing her to think, move, and act with inhuman speed. And she was just one of thousands now tuned. Scientists failed to explain it. Physicists panicked. Theories ranged from buried alien transmitters to post-planetary AI seeding Earth with the forced evolution protocol. But none of them could explain the strangest part. The signal was perfectly timed. Every new evolution, every new power, aligned with quantum harmonics that matched stellar alignments occurring only once every 9,000 years, a galactic standing wave amplified through the sun and reflected from Earth's core. Humanity wasn't mutating. It was being switched on by something old, and whatever was sending the signal, it hadn't finished yet. By the third month, the signal was no longer a fringe mystery. It was the axis around which the world now spun. The powers, dubbed harmonics by researchers, keys by those who received them, were still rare, affecting less than 0.01% of the global population. But their emergence was seismic, not just in ability, but in symmetry. Each new harmonic didn't just grant power, it answered something, like the Earth was composing a symphony, and humanity was being played, one instrument at a time. Jia Karim had been a long-haul pilot grounded during the signal blackout. During a thunderstorm in Myanmar, her delta strand engaged. Her body adapted to electrical saturation and rewrote its core processing around localized gravity lensing. She could manipulate gravitational tension in specific areas, fold light into darkness, bend the trajectory of objects in flight, even create microhorizons to absorb impact or sound. Now she worked with the UN, or tried to, directing the safe re-entry of damaged satellites by literally pulling them in from orbit. Every country wanted her, half feared her. None could control her. In Mexico City, Elias Quintero, a former street artist, experienced activation while spray painting beneath an old data tower. His harmonic manifested in tactile reality alteration. What he painted with his bare hands became real for as long as he maintained visual focus. He rebuilt crumbling neighborhoods in hours, created clean food systems with a thought, designed micro-hospitals out of color and steel and breath. People called him El Muralista. The government called him a threat to urban planning. The U.S. tried to recruit him. He turned them down with a smile and drew a 10-meter wall between himself and their drones. Meena Kapoor, a tech prodigy in Bengaluru, received her harmonic during a dreamless sleep following a music exposure experiment. When she awoke, she could synchronize with any network system, not hack, not control, but harmonize with its internal logic, becoming a living extension of the code. She fixed the global flight system outage in under an hour and refused compensation. When governments asked how, she simply said, "I didn't break in. I listened." The world was reshaping itself. Infrastructure failure rates plummeted. Power grids self-repaired with harmonic aid. Ocean cleanup advanced by decades. Medical breakthroughs occurred overnight. One man in Kenya could filter bacterial RNA through his sweat, eradicating cholera from 4 villages in 2 days. But for every miracle, there was a reaction. In Washington, the Department of Homeland Harmonics was born in secret, rebranding the old DARPA AI Directorate. Their mission: analyze, catalog, and if necessary, neutralize unregulated keybearers. In Moscow, new laws criminalized unregistered harmonics. 3 Russian keybearers were arrested and never seen again. China deployed artificial resonance jammers in major cities, fearing signal instability. A harmonic woman, who could halt tectonic stress across multiple kilometers, fled Hong Kong after her family was detained. And in North Africa, warlords began kidnapping individuals believed to be key active. In Lagos, a 14-year-old boy with tempo reversal capabilities stopped a bombing by rerunning 37 seconds of local time and was immediately taken by unknown agents. Mara Denley, now part of a UN private alliance called the Continuum Initiative, watched the world tilt on 1,000 axes. In her internal quantum state, she had glimpsed something else, a second layer to the Earth signal, not just instructing what to become, but preparing humanity for something else. The harmonics were not weapons. They were frequencies in a rising chord, and Earth was not the composer. The harmonics were changing more than the world. They were changing people. Not just those with powers, but everyone. Fear bloomed faster than wonder. It began with the skybreak incident. On June 3rd, above Patagonia, a harmonic named Rowan Alvec fractured the upper ionosphere with a controlled sonic graviton burst. His ability, a form of high-density waveform projection, was previously used to redirect hurricanes. But this time, something was different. Rowan claimed he'd seen something through the tear, something looking back. 5 minutes after the rupture, every low-orbit satellite above the region failed. Radio silence. The atmosphere shivered for an hour. Then the breach sealed itself, not by natural means, but by something intelligent. Rowan disappeared, not by fleeing. He was simply gone. The event set off the largest military harmonic lockdown in history. In the shadows of this new global order, resistance formed, not from the powerless, but from dissenting harmonics. People who believed the signal was not a gift, but a priming mechanism, a cosmic infiltration, a reconfiguration of humanity's biological firewall. They called themselves the Gray Chord. One of their leaders, Dr. Kyra Salek, a former neural engineer turned key bearer, had a harmonic that allowed her to interface with other powered individuals through their activated delta strands. She claimed the signal was storing something in their minds, patterns, symbols, even dreams she couldn't distinguish from memories. Her followers sabotaged UN's signal research nodes. One detonated a resonance inversion bomb at a harmonic testing facility in Oslo, collapsing the cognitive function of 3 key actives, their minds wiped clean like overwritten drives. The Continuum Initiative responded with quiet force. Mara Denley, now a field director, had mastered her quantum deceleration harmonic, allowing her to move and think nearly 1,000 times faster than anyone in her presence. In coordinated time-dilated operations, her team secured dozens of rogue harmonics before they could disappear into resonance shadows, subspaces where the normal laws of light and perception no longer applied. But even Mara was beginning to feel it. In the static silence between slowed seconds, she sometimes heard whispers, not hallucinations, but stacked communications, like compressed data carried within the signal's pulse. The more she listened, the more she became sure the signal wasn't just waking humanity. It was measuring it. Meanwhile, in Lagos, something impossible happened. A 12-year-old girl with no recorded delta strand activation, no exposure to known triggers, phase-shifted out of local reality while playing in a park. CCTV caught her walking between trees and not returning. 2 minutes later, she reappeared, with a plant in her hand not native to Earth, and her hair crystallized into a lattice of living silicon. She said only this: "They say we are in the chorus, not the verse." Public trust splintered. Entire cities deployed anti-resonance fields. Harmonics were banned from Tokyo, Mumbai, and parts of Canada. A black market for delta triggerers emerged: implants, neural transducers, devices designed to force the gift from latent carriers. Most failed. Some killed. A few worked. One man used a stolen harmonic, total kinetic nullification, to stop an armored train during a federal transfer and vanished into the Arctic with 5 other enhanced fugitives. He left a message burned into the steel: "If we are the new instruments, then who is playing the symphony?" And far beneath the planet, in the cold geometries of Earth's deep crust, the signal changed again. The sequence began looping, not broadcasting new powers, but repeating old ones, as if checking for consistency, as if preparing for evaluation. The loop confirmed it. The signal wasn't random. It was a system. And now, it was entering its next phase, calibration. It began subtly. Harmonics that had remained stable for months suddenly began to evolve, not in power, but in precision. Mara Denley's quantum deceleration no longer simply slowed her perception. Now she could choose the ratio of dilation with mathematical accuracy, tuning time like a violin string. Elias Quintero's living murals gained durability. They no longer vanished when he lost sight. They persisted, became real in the quantum record. But for others, things got darker. In Shanghai, a man with magnetogravitic threading powers, used to repair fractured rail lines, suddenly collapsed mid-operation. His harmonic had overloaded, pulling in stray electromagnetic data from every network within miles, frying his synapses. He died in seconds, but not before screaming one word over and over: "Incorrect, incorrect, incorrect." He wasn't alone. Across the globe, keybearers began experiencing corrections, forced reconfigurations of their abilities. A woman who once bent light to become invisible now emitted constant radiation, requiring containment. A sound manipulator in Johannesburg developed echolocation, so sensitive he went mad from the noise of insects breathing. The calibration protocol had begun. Governments responded with full militarization. The United Consortium for Signal Integrity, UCSI, was established, a multinational authority given sovereign rights over any individual exhibiting harmonic anomalies. Drones patrolled cities with quantum pattern analyzers. Those deemed unstable were detained in offshore resonance containment vessels. Resistance ignited. The gray cord emerged from hiding, revealing they had seated over 200 harmonic operatives across the globe, many within Continuum Initiative infrastructure. These rogue keybearers claimed that calibration was not about refinement. It was selection. They believed the signal was a test. The powers were the qualifiers, and humanity was being sifted. The Continuum Initiative disputed this, at first, but Mara Denley had begun running her own sublayer simulations in secret, using her accelerated cognition to chart the signal's behavioral logic. The data was undeniable. Each loop corresponded to composite frequency responses in the delta strand network, and each calibration cycle excluded more harmonic variations. It was behaving like an optimization algorithm, one that had a goal. In the Brazilian rainforest, something unprecedented occurred. A harmonic known only as coda emerged from deep resonance meditation with a shocking discovery. He could hear the origin signal, not the earthbound broadcast, but the source vector, buried somewhere beneath the Pacific plate. He described a singularity of waveform and tension, not a machine, not a god, but something older, something that wrote physics before there were eyes to see it. The Continuum sent a team. Only half returned. The rest were consumed by a non-local spatial collapse. Their neural recordings scrambled into geometric impossibilities. One survivor wrote a phrase in blood across the inside of their debrief chamber. Calibration ends when the choir is in key. The world fractured. Nations declared harmonic neutrality zones. No use of powers allowed, with shoot-on-sight enforcement. Others built cities powered entirely by harmonics. Religious orders declared the signal divine, a resonance rapture, and began forcibly awakening dormant carriers. Meanwhile, somewhere in a resonance-stabilized compound beneath Antarctica, Mara Denley stood before a harmonic stasis interface. Within, the child from Lagos was kept, still clutching the alien plant, still exuding the living crystalline hair. The plant had grown. It now pulsed in time with the signal. Mara stared at it, her accelerated mind catching frames between frames. There was a rhythm in the pulse, a countdown, a final movement, and Earth was the conductor's podium. By the time the countdown reached its final 72 hours, no one could pretend it was all just science. The signal, the harmonic sequence rising from Earth's crust and wrapping itself around the species like a cocoon, had entered its final form, the final choir. It no longer transmitted data. It sang. A pure, perfect waveform, so complex it defied instrumentation, audible not with ears but with bone, blood, and DNA. Every delta strand active individual felt it, like a second heartbeat pulsing inside their marrow. Even the unawakened heard fragments in dreams. Mara Denley no longer used her harmonic only for time dilation. She had reached beyond it. Her consciousness had merged partially with the signal field, allowing her to experience parallel possibilities, fractured timelines, the ghosts of paths the Earth could have taken. In those timelines, the calibration had failed. The world collapsed, not from war or plague or hubris, but because humanity hadn't aligned, because the song never found resonance. In the frozen halls beneath Antarctica, the girl from Lagos, codenamed Cadence, finally knew the truth. Her hair shimmered with living signal crystal, and the alien plant in her hand had become something impossible on a map. Not geographic, harmonic. It detailed the Earth's harmonic lattice, a hidden frequency framework, an interface. The signal wasn't just testing humanity. It was trying to connect. The continuum, the gray chord, even rogue harmonics across the globe ceased their conflicts, because the final pulse was coming, and it would either synchronize or cleanse. In the hours before the signal's crescendo, harmonics around the world began to converge on resonant apex sites, locations where Earth's harmonic fields crossed in multidimensional flux. There were 12. Each one called a key-bearer by instinct, by code written into their rewritten DNA. Mara was one of them. So was Elias, painting a path through space-time. So was Mina Kapoor, who had become more code than flesh, her eyes streaming binary tears. And Cadence, the child whose mind was a living antenna. They met at the 12th site, not a temple, not a machine, but a signal lock, hidden in the geometry of the Mariana Trench's lowest point. When all 12 keys arrived, the lock opened. The song completed. For a moment, all of humanity, powered or not, experienced unity. Every mind linked, every memory shared. There was no language, only understanding. The signal was never alien. It was ancestral, a survival code, a harmonic encryption seed planted eons ago when Earth first cooled, set to trigger only when a species evolved capable of decoding it. The message was clear. You are the first. not the last. The song continues elsewhere. You are ready. In a final, blinding harmonic flash, the signal collapsed, not violently, but like a note perfectly struck, echoing into silence. The delta strand deactivated, the world stilled, and humanity remained, changed. Not all retained their powers, some did. Not all wanted to remember, but none could forget. The earth was quiet again, but above it, a new signal shimmered in the dark between stars, one the awakened could hear faintly, like the first note of a new song waiting to be sung, to be continued somewhere in the next key.